Think Antarctica is just a frozen wilderness of ice, wind, and empty white nothing? Beneath that ice, researchers have mapped structures older than any known human civilization. And in 2018, a team of geologists filed a report that was quietly withdrawn from public record within 72 hours. And at the end of this video, we will show you the one location that every major government agreed to place off limits before anyone could ask why. Today, 9 forbidden places of Antarctica that science has refused to explain. The ice remembers everything. The question is whether we are ready to hear what it has to say. Imagine standing at the edge of the Ross Ice Shelf. Nothing ahead of you but white. No horizon, no landmark, no sound. Just 2 million square kilometers of ice pressing down on whatever lies beneath. The official record says Antarctica has been uninhabited for all of human history. Too cold, too remote, too hostile. No civilization could have survived here. That is what every textbook will tell you. And then someone looked closer. In 2016, a NASA operation called IceBridge, a legitimate aerial survey program, was mapping ice thickness over the Wilkes Land region of East Antarctica. The equipment used ground-penetrating radar, standard scientific instrumentation. What the radar returned was not standard. Beneath 2.3 kilometers of solid ice, the imaging revealed a flat geometric surface. Not a rock formation, not a glacial ridge, a flat surface, measured, regular, deliberate, spanning an area of roughly 14,000 square meters. Stop for a second. One of the IceBridge researchers, a geophysicist based in Maryland, submitted an internal query asking for a follow-up survey of the coordinates. That request was logged on November 3, 2016. No follow-up survey was ever conducted. His query was marked deprioritized, resource constraints. He retired the following year. He has not spoken publicly about what the radar showed, not once. A flat geometric surface beneath 2.3 kilometers of ancient ice. Either it formed naturally in a way no geological process can account for, or it was there before the ice was. And if it was there before the ice, then everything we think we know about who has lived on this planet needs to be reconsidered. In 1947, the United States Navy launched one of the largest military operations ever conducted in the Southern Hemisphere. They called it Operation Highjump. Officially, it was a training exercise, a routine test of cold weather military readiness. 4,700 men, 13 ships, 33 aircraft for a training exercise. And that is where the story breaks. The operation was commanded by Rear Admiral Richard Byrd, the most decorated polar explorer in American history. It was scheduled to last 6 to 8 months. It lasted 68 days. No official explanation was ever given for why it ended so abruptly. The final report filed by Admiral Byrd was immediately classified upon his return to Washington. It remained classified for decades. Stop for a second. When Byrd returned to the United States in February 1947, he gave a single press interview before being silenced by the Navy. In that interview he said, and these are his documented words, that the continent concealed a land of everlasting mystery. He said it held resources and realities that the world was not yet prepared to understand. 3 days later, all further interviews were canceled. The Navy released a one-page statement saying the operation had been a complete success. They never defined what success meant. Byrd died in 1957. His personal expedition journals were held by the Navy for 22 years after his death, before partial declassification in 1979. Researchers who reviewed those journals noted that 43 pages covering the final 2 weeks of the operation were missing entirely, not redacted, not blacked out, missing 40-3 pages, and no one in the United States government has ever acknowledged they existed. What did 4,700 men see down there that required 68 days to contain and 43 pages to erase? We are halfway through, and what you have heard so far is not even the uncomfortable part. What comes next is the reason this story was buried for over 70 years. Stay with me. There is a lake in Antarctica that should not exist. It sits beneath 4 kilometers of ice in the eastern interior of the continent. It is called Lake Vostok, and it has been liquid for an estimated 15 million years. Russian scientists first detected it in 1974. They said nothing publicly for 20 years. In 1994, after American and British researchers independently confirmed its existence, the Russian Antarctic expedition finally acknowledged the lake was real. They did not explain the 20-year silence. Drilling to reach the lake began in the 1990s. In February 2012, after more than 2 decades of drilling, the Russian team broke through to the lake's surface. What they retrieved in the initial water sample changed the conversation entirely. Not a variant, not a mutation, not a known organism in an unusual environment. Something genuinely unclassified, something without a name. Stop for a second. One of the lead microbiologists on the project, Dr. Sergei Bulat of the Petersburg Nuclear Physics Institute, made a single public statement in 2013. He said the DNA was so distinct it represented, and these are his words, a new life form. The Russian team has not published a full peer-reviewed analysis of the Lake Vostok samples to this day. 15 million years of isolation, bacterial life with no known classification, and a scientific team that went quiet the moment they found it. But Lake Vostok is not the most restricted location in Antarctica. There is a place further south, a coordinate that appears in early expedition records and then vanishes, a place that has a name in 3 separate government archives from 3 different countries. And in all 3, it is listed under the same category, restricted, indefinitely. The coordinate appears first in a 1955 British Antarctic Survey document, a single-line entry, grid reference, elevation, and one word beside it, anomalous, nothing else, no follow-up notation, no researcher name attached. Just that one word written in careful, deliberate ink. In 1962, the same coordinate appears again, this time in a declassified United States Geological Survey report covering the Marie Byrd Land region of West Antarctica. The third line reads, "Further access requires joint authorization. See Appendix F." Appendix F has never been made public, and that is where the story breaks. In 2001, a Norwegian researcher named Dr. Henrik Svensson was conducting independent glaciological work near the Hobbs Coast. He was not looking for anything unusual. He was measuring ice flow patterns. On his 4th day in the field, his GPS equipment began returning coordinates that did not match his physical location. Not a small discrepancy, a displacement of nearly 3 kilometers. Svensson documented the anomaly carefully, filed it with the Norwegian Polar Institute upon his return to Oslo. The institute acknowledged receipt, then, 6 weeks later, sent him a 1-paragraph response stating his equipment had experienced magnetic interference consistent with known regional variation. Stop for a second. Svensson had used that same equipment across 11 previous Antarctic expeditions. It had never malfunctioned once. He wrote back requesting the specific magnetic variation data the institute had referenced. They never replied. He kept the original GPS log. In a 2009 interview with a Norwegian science journal called Geo Magazine, he described the coordinates his equipment had returned during those 3 days of displacement. A journalist cross-referenced those numbers. They matched precisely the same grid reference from the 1955 British survey document, the one marked anomalous, 3 countries, 5 decades apart, all pointing to the same location. And every time someone gets close, the communication stops, the files disappear, the questions go unanswered. What is at those coordinates that has kept 3 governments silent for over 60 years? And why does the ice above it behave differently from everything around it? Let us bring it all together. A geometric structure beneath 2.3 kilometers of ice, detected by NASA and never followed up. An entire military operation that ended 60 days early, with 43 pages cut from its record. A lake sealed for 15 million years, containing life that science cannot classify, studied by a team that has not spoken since. A single coordinate, marked anomalous in 1955, that 3 governments across 5 decades have quietly refused to explain. These are not isolated incidents. They are a pattern, and patterns do not form by accident. Stop for a second. In 1959, the same year Admiral Byrd's classified report was still locked in a Navy vault. 12 nations signed the Antarctic Treaty. That treaty designated the entire continent as a scientific preserve. It banned military activity. It guaranteed freedom of research. It also, buried in Article 7, granted signatory nations the right to restrict access to any location deemed sensitive to national security on a continent that was supposedly nothing but empty ice. Think about what that means. They wrote a legal mechanism to keep people away from specific locations before the public even knew those locations existed. The question is no longer whether something is being hidden in Antarctica. The question is, why did 12 governments agree in the same year to build a legal wall around it? What did they all know in 1959 that we are still not being told today? Write in the comments which part of this story affected you the most. If this video changed how you see Antarctica, a like is the best way to say thank you. Subscribe to Classified Earth, because the truth was always there. They just didn't want you to find it.